Hello everyone and welcome to the program Midday Discourse on Global Television. I am Samuel Odi. Many thanks for joining at this hour. Looking at it now, there's been lots of queues since January up to date in Nigeria, despite the fuel during the fuel subsidy. When we had fuel subsidy, and now it has been taken away, and when the fuel subsidy was taken out, fuel was sold at 670 naira to a litre. At this point now, fuel subsidy is still out. Dangote Refinery is ready to start, getting its products into the market, and Dangote Refinery has promised to distribute 25 million litres of petrol to Nigeria nationwide. At this point now, fuel is being sold at 890 naira in NNPC filling station. Now, NNPC are coming out to say the Minister of Petroleum is coming out to say he has nothing to do with it. A lot of controversies going on within the sector on the said price. Some persons in different states of the nations are selling at, some persons selling for 1,000 naira, some 980. Even here in the nation's capital, some persons have gotten petrol for as high as 1,000 naira. The black markets sellers also having their own, taking advantage of the whole period and then selling fuel at a higher price. Now, what does this mean for a common Nigerian? What does this mean to the human selling gari and granules in the market? What does this mean to hawkers? What does this mean to private business enterprises, given the fact that we, as a nation, we depend solely on electricity to run businesses, and now electricity generation is, has grown to like 5,000 megawatts, and then still we're having lacks of electricity, given the instance of Band A and Band B. And some persons on Band A and Band B are also complaining that they don't get enough power supply. A whole lot is happening in this country, and it's time we start asking questions. All of these questions have been asking, and it's seeming as if results, and we're not getting to the end of this culture of having, fuel queues in the country. Not just having fuel queues, but buying the fuel PMS price at outrageous price, given the fact that the President of the Federation has given instructions for crude to be sold in Naira. And at this point, Dangote now has released its first petrol and is willing to get it into the market, but still awaiting instruction from FEC on how much he should sell his product. Just a whole lot has been going on, and we are hoping on today's edition of the program we would be able to address and then see where we are going to head to. If this is something that is going to, be copped out real soon, and we would find out in the course of the program. I'm not alone today. Joining me live in the studio, Mr. Emmanuel Ozo Emena, who is a policy consultant, and we're also going to be having conversations with the upcoming U.S. election and the group that is also making wave and hoping to see how they can turn things around in the U.S. election. My name is Samuel Odi. Thank you for joining at this hour. Mr. Emmanuel Zemena, thank you also for joining me at this hour as we tend to extray all of these major talking points.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Yes.
And good afternoon, Nigeria.
Yeah, Mr. Emmanuel, now, looking at it now, it's no longer news that we've been having almost since January till date. It's just from one fuel queue to the other. Given the fact that Dangote now is ready to sell his products, and just a few days ago, he made an announcement that 25 million litres will be going into the Nigerian market. What do you think now is the cost, and then why do you think there's a hike in price, given the fact that we have someone locally who can be giving us petrol?
I think Nigerians woke up yesterday with, I saw on the Twitter, a news item, a supposedly press statement or interview or statement from the Minister of State Petroleum,
Yes.
Senator Henikin Lokobri, indicating that the NNPC are at liberty to sell above 1,000 because that is a company. They need to operate. They don't need to operate, at a loss. That the cost of getting the fuel at the stations where at the pump price is so and so is over 1,000. That they are at liberty to fix their price. And before you know it, there was confusion all over the country, and that's what you get normally with that type of policy processes that are not well thought out. You recall on May 29th, 2023, that was how subsidies gone, also sent shock to the market. So what we have seen happen was, it's simply the market reacting.
Okay.
Market reacting, the entire logistic and chains across the country depends on petrol, land transport, because there are no rail, there are no, I mean, even the inland waterways are not functional. So it means over 90%, if not 99% of the business in Nigeria, logistics and all depends on the road transport. So the reaction was huge. And in the coming days, even now, I spoke to a couple of people offering services. They've also increased the costs of their services. So that's where we are. It's a shame in that a country that is supposed to be the 6th largest producer of crude in the world, currently it's under the strain of fuel scarcity. That's the biggest shame you can get. I mean, there's no other way to describe shame. Yeah.
You know, looking at these angles now, what does it mean for businesses? Because way before now, when the fuel price was at 6.17, we had a few businesses packed up, right? So now that it's at this price now, what does this mean to like small scale businesses, given the fact that, you know, a whole lot of persons, like you rightly mentioned now, are now increasing price? What does this mean to the common man?
The key thing first, from the point of view of production of anybody who is an investor, an entrepreneur, small businesses, and even medium scale and large businesses, it means debt to a lot of businesses, because the operational cost is going to be high and the profit margin will become thinner and thinner. And you are going to ask yourself, do I really need to continue this? Are there alternative things I can do? And people are likely going to look for those alternatives and walk away. The challenge is, most of the times, the decision makers, if you ask me, do not think through these processes. The processes come most times either knee-jerk or spur of the moment. The consequences are not really thought through, or even what you call unintended consequences. So the economy will deepen, the crisis will deepen, the inflation will rise, and your guess is as good as mine. The economy, the expected growth will likely not be realized. You know.
Okay, let's look at this from this other angle. Just 3 weeks ago, to be specific, there was a nationwide protest and bad governance. And then one of the key things that were mentioned was reverse the fuel subsidy. People were clamoring and crying for the reversal of fuel subsidy before it amounted to this. And then just a few days ago, a few protesters were arraigned in the court and they were charged with treason, you know, because they were arrested during the time of the protest. Now, do we think, with what's currently happening now, the fuel price and the hunger in the land, do you think we might see another protest coming up soon?
I think the key thing about protest, demonstration, dissent, disagreement, they are part of democracy.
Yes.
Because why they are part of democracy is that you must create platforms, avenues, you know, for citizens who are angry to express themselves. That's why under the United Nations article on human rights, it talks about expression, free speech, expression of dissent. And it even provides a feedback to policymakers, to government. So what you do is like you go home and your children are protesting. Daddy, the food is not enough. Daddy, we need this and all that. So what you do, they are giving you a feedback.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I had expected to happen is, in fact, I think the Minister of Budget and National Planning had a few days ago, I saw a report where he was quoted to have said, look, that they had got some valuable feedback from the protests, and they have taken the lessons learned. So I thought that should have been...
But does it look like it?
No. So on my own part, I thought that would have been the highlight of it. That we got feedback from citizens who told us, this is how the shoe is pinching on us, because we wear it. You know, citizens are the people who wear the shoes.
Yes.
So whether they gathered at the stadium, at Eagle Square, or wherever it is, across the country, and say, this is how we are feeling. I thought what I would have expected is pick those feedback, analyze it, and see how you can mainstream it into your policies, future policies, design of palliative, or whatever you think you can. But the way it is now, I mean, on Monday, incidentally, there was court sections in Lagos, in Abuja, in Kano, and Kaduna, and Maduguri.
Yes.
So it means for government, they had interpreted the entire process as treason. They also have a right. Because the point is that the legal process had gone on.
Yes.
So I expect the learned Mr. Femi Falana,
yes,
from what I've read, is the lead counsel for the protesters. So an MBA, you remember ahead of time, said they were going to set up across all the MBA chapters, they are going to set up special committee or within the legal, that will provide legal aid. I'm sure at the end of the day, let's see how the entire process goes. Let the process run through. When it runs through, there are 2 or 3 things we're going to see happen. Lessons will be learned. I mean, the government on their part will say, oh, perhaps we didn't get it right here, or we didn't get it right in the other way. How do we manage these processes, going forward? But the point is that so long as you have a country, so long as you have democracy, so long as you have human society, protest is inevitable. I mean, people showing their displeasure is inevitable. I mean, you can't... Even in the worst of non-democratic countries like China, people still protest.
Yes. Okay, let's look at this other angle. Like, do you think this whole incident with fuel hike and Dangote not yet, getting the actual figure on which he should sell his crude and product to Nigerian market, do you think is solely political?
Not political, anything. The point is that Nigeria is here to develop a market in some certain areas. One of them is energy, whether it's power or the fuel, petrol. How do you explain the 6th largest country in the world that has built 4 refineries, 2 located in Port Harcourt, 1 located in Warri, and then 1 located in Kaduna. You have petrochemical in Warri, you have a refinery and petrochemical in Port Harcourt, and also a refinery. And none of them is functional. So what other way to describe politics? Because it's
allocations always come for those.
You could look at it from the political economy of Nigeria. I mean, why are they not functional? For how many years have they been comatose?
Over a decade.
And then from time to time, ahead of the election, market, ahead of 2019, the immediate past president, I mean, President Muhammadu Buhari spoke about, we're going to award contracts for turnaround maintenance on the Port Harcourt refineries. And 2019 to now is how many years? And then every day you hear, Port Harcourt refinery would take off by December, it will take off by August, it will take off by July. So it's all talks. It's all politics. In fact, in the last few weeks, we've also heard that repeat. I think the key thing to do as a country is we may need to take stock. We've got this investment, huge investment. What is the state of those investments? Can we do an audit on the 4 refineries? What is their value? Can we take the option of privatizing them, hand it over to someone else, say manage it, revitalize it and run it? Is it a better option, or do we do build, operate, and transfer, BOT? What options are available?
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about that. But what you're going to hear, what you keep seeing, NNPC released their audited financial report.
Yes.
You see monies are located for refineries that are producing zero output. No business person would want to keep an asset that produces zero output.
Yes.
I mean, look at it. So you either sell it off, or you get a merger, but somehow get it working. Because where do you even get the money that you put in there on a year by year in, year out? So for me, that's a poor policy articulation, poor business approach is unthinkable. So for Dangote, they are talking about pricing. But I thought they said, we have, it should be determined by the market force.
Yes.
So why go in to now await? I saw a report, NNPC saying they will be the sole buyer. So in my head, I'm saying, how? Don't you have options where to buy? So why don't you leave this Dangote whatever open to anybody who wants to buy?
Yes.
You have other players. So the key thing is, over the years, for me, if you ask me, can't we take the Saudi option? What you call Saudi Aramco was actually set up by Standard Oil of America. They set it up in the 40s, ahead of Saudi becoming, I think in 1938. What happened was that because you have a private company from America, run it over time, it became very, very productive. Today, half of their shares are quoted on the stock exchange. In fact, a few years ago, they were even talking of taking over part of the equity in NNPC. So the point is that whether it's Brazil, whether it's Saudi Arabia, what have they done with their own state-owned oil company that is today a hybrid? So why are we afraid of taking that option?
Options, okay.
So sometimes,
do you think that's the best approach for all of this to be copped out?
any approach that will ensure that there's availability of fuel, energy to run the Nigerian economy would be the best of approach. Have you ever heard of fuel scarcity in Saudi Arabia? But rather, the company is making profit. So what is holding down the NNPL? What is holding it down? Okay, why don't you throw the shares open, go for initial public offer? It will even allow government to raise funds. Well, when you go, give up 52% of the shares. Then the federal and state government can own the remaining shares. But what it means is that any decision that will be taken will be business-driven decisions, not political decisions.
Not political decisions, but okay. Now these are there are lots of angles to these, and there are obviously hiccups now. But what's the way out now? Looking at FEC now, FEC wants to determine the price at which Dangote is going to sell its products. And it was said by this current administration that by the time Dangote starts selling, and NNPC themselves, they also said by the time Dangote starts selling his products, we are expected to see the price that's from 617 naira to, go down to either 400 or 500. With this current change now, what are we expected to see?
No, hold on. I'm not optimistic that anything is going to change. Ask me why. I've lived here for over 5 decades in Nigeria. Yes. I've followed policy processes. It's like each day gets worse than the day before. Yeah. So you can look at it across board. if you're over 50, if you're over 60, if you're over 70, in fact, the older you are and reflect on how much things have changed, the more angrier you become. Because you just ask yourself, where did we get it wrong? So these are speaks, political speaks. They are neither here nor there. That's one. And then two, there's no country in the world that would situate or base their energy security issue on one company. No. That's for me, that's actually a poor planning, poor policy approach. That's one. There are countries in the world, South Korea, for instance, they don't have crude anywhere, but they have several refineries. They refine and sell to other countries. There are several countries in the world. South Africa don't have crude, but they have several refineries there. So why would it be that 200 million, a country of over 200 million people, 238 million people, everybody's waiting on the El Dorado Dangote refinery? No. That's, for me, that's the biggest joke any policy any policy maker can tell me. You are waiting on one single refinery, even when you had 4 different refineries located in 2 parts of the country. A Kaduna refinery that is functional between you and I will be able to serve the market in the north. And every other person is waiting for this refinery located in Lagos
to serve the whole
No. That's the biggest joke of the year, if you ask me.
We'll be going on a very quick break, and then when we return back, Midday Discourse continues. Please do stay with us. Yes, many thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining, this is Midday Discuss, and we've been having interesting conversation about the unending fuel queues that we are witnessing since January. So let's get to our second major talking point. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is heating up, with recent polls show a close race between contenders, with Kamala Harris currently leading by a slight margin. In a recent poll, Harris received a 21-point lead, while other polls show a tighter race with a 3-point lead. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has maintained a 2-point lead in some polls, while others show a tie. So moving on now, we are going to measure more ahead of the November 5th U.S. elections. An Indian diaspora group has launched a campaign in increase and policy impact in participating for Indian American vote in the polls. The launched by the non-profit institution Foundation for India and Indian in Diaspora Studies. The Indo-American Vote Matters campaign underscores the critical role the community can play in shaping the nation's future. As a vibrant and growing immigrant minority, Indo-Americans number approximately around 4.5 million across the United States, have required opportunities to make a significant impact on the 2024 election, coordinating the key swing states such as Florida, Georgia, Arizona, Virginia, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. The Indo-American voters could be decisive in dominating the outcome of the crucial race. Now we are going to be extraying all of this and see, the outcome and what it's going to lead to in terms of the crucial race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. You have a reaction to this because I noticed you're itchy to respond. But what's your response to this 4.5 million Indian?
I'm not. No, just for correction, I'm not itchy. I'm not itchy in terms of in the last 30 years or more, I have followed the U.S. elections.
Yes.
In my house out there in the village, I have Time magazine, Newsweek magazine of up to 1980. I have them in the library at my at home because my father actually invested in those, was interested in those. So I grew up learning or following those trends.
Yes.
To begin with, as at today, the population of registered voters,
Yes.
of Indian origin in the U.S. are 21 million.
Okay.
2.1 million.
Yes.
So you don't have 4 million anywhere.
Okay.
So you know, in politics, people play with data. Data are available on the U.S. Population Bureau. You can go double check it. So when people come up with fixed numbers,
Yes.
so what you do, you fact check.
Okay.
So this is, you can dismiss it as a as a non-issue. Then again, the 2024 election in the U.S. will be determined by, first, what is the domestic policy of the candidates? Very, very important. And what is their foreign policy goals, aspiration or agenda? Thirdly, what are you could say, the demographics? I understand the politics of the polls.
Okay.
I'm a student of logic. In logic, we identified what we call fallacy of statistics.
Okay.
And fallacy of statistics, you get it more around political poolings, social poolings, cultural poolings. You are doing a polling on an outcome of a decision you want to take. Take, for instance, do we increase fuel price or not?
thanks. Many thanks for staying with us. Mr. Ozemena, before we had to go on that very quick break, you had a thought that I said you should hold on to.
Yeah, so I was talking about the fallacy of statistics.
Okay.
So if you understand the fallacy of statistics, I mean, you're looking at, do we increase fuel price or not, pump price of, PMS in Nigeria or not. You go to Metama, Sokoro, who say to and interview people who are well off economically. They're going to ask you, it's not their business, you can increase it
yes.
because it's affordable. But if you go to Lugbe Nyanya, Karamajiji and all that to do that same pool, you're going to get a different feedback. So a police can decide who to talk to, where to go, where to take his samples from. So that's so what has happened. And then there's also, like I have said severally, the American media is a political media.
Okay.
So you could say this is where this media stands. At the moment, over 80 to 90% of the media in the US are pro-Democrats. So you can see it in their reportage, in their polling, in their coverage. Say, for instance, Vice President Kamala Harris had her first interview in 40 days with any media, with CNN, a friendly media. Incidentally, it wasn't a live interview. So meaning that, one, it would have been edited. If you follow through the trend of thought, there were no follow-up questions. Some thoughts didn't fit in very well. So because if you listen carefully to, if it's a live interview, you could get the flow. You won't have opportunity of editing. That's one. So if a presidential candidate is giving an interview, it should be solo, not with a vice presidential nominee. So the entire thing, if you look through it, and then the trend of thought, there was a lot of flip-flop. I mean, play back in 4 years, when, what did I say? What am I saying now? That's one. Two, Donald Trump had thrown himself to the media. In his press conferences, everybody comes both friendly and unfriendly media. He will also call them out and say, yeah, but I know you don't represent a credible media. But that's his opinion. Because the biggest lie the world had birthed over time is that the American media is apolitical. It's not. It's a political media. That's why they endorse candidates. And any media that endorses candidates, for whatever reason, is political. So that's number one. Number two, the Indo-American Association, it's a free association of, it's what they call political action packs. Political action groups or associations that gather together. I'm sure before even they came up, they had former presidential candidate is also Indian. And these are people pushing Trump. Between Democratic Party and Republican Party, I mean, I'm sure you know their position on businesses. The Indian community, incidentally, is a business community. So a Democratic Party may not necessarily fit into their worldview. Because businesses want to pay less tax. Why do businesses pay less tax? If they pay less tax, they will have money to expand the employment base. And then people they hire will now be able to pay income tax. That's actually the core economic approach or agenda of the Republican Party. Why the Democratic Party is leaning on the socialism. They are looking at, look, let's create a welfare society. So these are the key things. I had said this before in several platforms where I have spoken about the American election, that in 2016, the media was in shock. They had predicted a win for Secretary Hillary Clinton. So when it happened, they couldn't recall that there's a certain incident of Newsweek magazine doing a commemorative edition for a Madam President that never happened. And that edition incidentally was on sale 10 days before the election. They had to recall it, issued a statement and say, look, we didn't authorize it. Our agent put it on sale. So the point is that the American people, like I kept saying, would decide the next president of the United States. And the key parameters will be domestic issues. How do you manage inflation? At the moment, the inflation in America is high. Yes. Cost of gas, cost of living.
It's happening globally, all the cost, inflation is on a rise globally.
Yes. Then how do you manage foreign policy? It's a key issue. Ukraine, Middle East. Ukraine and Middle East are and NATO are the hottest item on this election. So each of the candidates, President Donald Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris, would know, how do I navigate? Few days ago, I think on Sunday, 6 Israelis were killed, hostage were killed, and they were found in Rafah. And you saw the debate whether the Israeli Defense Force should go to Rafah or not. Yeah. You saw Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris say, I've studied the map, they shouldn't go to Rafah. And incidentally, there's an American Jew who was killed in that incident. So the point is that Middle East will play a key role in this election. Okay. One, then
because of the insurgencies going on in Russia and between Gaza and Israel?
No. Yeah, Gaza and Israel. Okay. It's a big issue.
Yes.
Then what do we do post-conflict? How do we manage the conflict, get out of it, and then ensure there's a sustainable peace? If you listen to President Trump, he keeps talking that he got all these countries together to sign what he called Abraham Accord, which created some level of peace across in that region. Then how you manage Ukraine and Russia becomes another big issue. At the moment, the part of the economic crisis countries are experiencing emanates from the crisis in Ukraine and Russia. In the Middle East, just for instance, between Ukraine and Russia, they control 38% of the grain supply, global grain supply. So at the moment, that corridor is closed, the Black Sea corridor. So the U.S. is also suffering because U.S. supports NATO. The allies in NATO, countries in Europe, apart from Germany, UK, United Kingdom, France, the rest don't have a good economy. So their subscription or support to NATO, it's small. America bears over 70% of the budget of NATO. So the next president of America would take a decision whether we should keep giving money to NATO, that money to be funding the war in Ukraine or not. And then part of the Ukraine, I read a report somewhere that EU and Russia and Ukraine were close towards having an accord that would have prevented this war. But you have military-industrial complex who stepped in for over time. They've not fought a big war. They needed money. They needed contracts. And see where we are now today. And every part of the world is affected. So that foreign policy engagement becomes a key issue. How do we end the war in Middle East, end the Russia-Ukraine war, and Trump every day, if you listen to him, say, a day after I take over, I will find a solution. But the other guy seems not to have a solution.
Yes, looking at that angle of having a solution now, in terms, looking at the president of Russia and the kind of person the vice president Kamala Harris is, and the kind of person President Donald Trump is, and looking at this Indian community that have, a fairly reasonable amount of persons that are going to vote during the polls, do you think with those advantages now of she being Asian American, do you think she has an upper hand given those numbers? And do you think she's someone that can be able to sit down in the same room with Putin and find a way to solve out this problem?
President Biden couldn't sit with Putin. I mean, in 4 years, in 3.5 years, they couldn't sit. But we saw Donald Trump, incidentally, got the guy in North Korea, and they had a meeting in Vietnam. Trump said in one of his speeches I listened to, that Obama in his note, in his handover note, said, look, the guy in North Korea is a headache. He said from that moment, he thought I would manage him. That's one. Then two, Biden couldn't get a summit with the Russian president. I'm sure if they had a summit, usually, I mean, in the 80s, 90s, you see Jimmy Carter or Nixon or Ronald Reagan, George Bush having summit. Usually it would be either you visit Moscow, he returns the visit, or you choose a neutral ground,
yes,
a neutral ground to meet, Zurich, Warsaw, or anywhere.
Yes.
But it hasn't happened. I'm sure if it had happened, Ukraine would have been averted, because it was a preventable crisis. All they needed was to engage. Trump looks top of his game. I wouldn't know any magic that a president, Kamala Harris would want to adopt. That's one. I mean, let's look at that debate that is coming up on the 10th of September. That debate will be like make or mar. Remember the debate between Trump and Biden became the make or mar. Incidentally, Trump is preparing with his team, and Kamala Harris is also preparing with her team. And the whole world will be waiting. But I think the Indian Americans are business people.
Okay.
If they are business people, they are likely going to be divided between some would vote a daughter of the soil, like they say in Nigeria. Some would look at the other end and say, look, we need to run our business.
Just like some part of the eastern part of Nigeria.
So it's going to be a huge decision. But at the moment, I think the last time I checked, 48% of Indians are leaning to Democratic Party, while over 28% are Republicans. And mind you, there's a third party candidate in this election. You have Robert Kennedy Jr.,
Yes.
who had dropped, even though, as at this morning, in some states, they say we won't take your name off the ballot, depending on, each state needs to include the name of a candidate on their ballot.
Yes.
Then you have Dr. Cornel West, who is a black academic, also running. In fact, I read a report where they are alleging that Republican Party are the people funding him, because he's actually going to infiltrate into Kamala Harris' base amongst African Americans.
Yes.
His issues are quite different from what the Democratic Party are saying. But incidentally, Robert Kennedy had endorsed Trump. In fact, both of them are appearing at different rallies.
Yes.
what I think will happen, it will be a keenly contested elections.
Okay.
The 7 states that have been described as battleground states would be very, very decisive or would be very, very impactful in deciding the final winner. I hope you know it's electoral college.
Yes.
And if you win in a state, that means the entire electoral college goes for you. At the moment, it's too close to call, but I think it will be an interesting election.
Okay, let's, before we wrap up now, as we wrap up rather, looking at the current situation, the fuel situation in Nigeria, what's like your final take on that, and what do you think the government and the NNPC needs to do different to be able to cop out and then create room for Dangote Refinery to be able to have its products in the market?
The key issue is that the government should be clear, open, and transparent to Nigerians and say, you know, Nigerians are asking, are we still paying subsidy? If we are paying, because NNPC from report are saying we are owing $6 billion.
Yes.
Where did it come from?
How? Yes, that's a very good question.
Yeah, so you need to resolve it quickly. If you're paying without owning up, then you need to own up.
Then we can't be paying and then having this. Well, that's how much time will permit us to take on today's edition of the program. My name is Samuel Odi, Mr. Emmanuel Zemena. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of the program.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. So I'll be seeing you again tomorrow with another exciting edition of the program. Bye for now.